What's up? In this video I'll be showing you how you can easily edit a photo in Photoshop from the start to the very end. And in case you're a beginner and you want to learn how to edit and color grade your photos in Photoshop, this is the best tutorial for you. So simply like the video and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if at all you are watching and you're not yet subscribed to this channel. So after importing the raw image in Photoshop, and by the way, to download the raw image to follow along with this video, simply check the link in the video description to download the raw image to follow along. So after importing the raw image in Photoshop, it's going to automatically be opened up in the Camera Raw filter. Camera Raw is basically a raw processing engine that is going to convert a raw image into a JPEG format that is supported by Photoshop. So for this, I'll simply come and correct the highlights and the contrast issues regarding this image. So I'll come to the highlights and drop my highlights and do the same for the whites. To recover information within the blown out areas of the skin tone, I'll open up the shadows and add some contrast to the image around, I prefer around 20 or 21, and that looks okay. Then I'll add a little bit of blacks to the image. I feel like about that is okay before, after. So I'll scroll down to my color mixer, and in color mixer basically I want to manipulate the colors, especially within the background. So you can change colors by playing around with the hue, saturation and the luminance values of the image. So for instance, in case I want to change the greens of this image, I'll come to the hues and I play around with the hues of the image. So I prefer to add that kind of look to the image. I prefer to make the greens a little bit to aqua side, and I come to the saturation and I reduce on the intensity or the saturation of the greens, just like that. And you can see by just doing this, the image starts to pop, and you can even play around with the hues of the yellows to make the image even stand out a little bit more. So I'll come to the saturation. Remember, saturation is the intensity of the color, so I'll drop down the saturation or the intensity of the greens so they don't look oversaturated. So after doing this, I'll simply come to the luminance and I darken the greens. Remember, luminance deals with the brightness levels of a color. And I'll do the same for the oranges slightly to darken that to get more information within the skin tone. And you can see the before after so far. So after I've done these simple adjustments to this image, I'll click on open in order to open the photo in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, we want to deal with the skin retouching and the final color grading of this very image. So after the image has been opened in Photoshop, we are going first of all retouch the skin or do the skin retouching of this very image. So are we going to do this? We're going to separate the colors from the textures by using frequency separation. Frequency separation divides the image into the colors and the textures. So come to where you see the background layer and press Ctrl J, or you can simply press Command J twice to create these two layers. Then for the middle layer, double click to rename it to color, and for the upper layer, double click to name it to texture, just like that. So after renaming these layers, select the color layer and turn off the texture layer 4. So for this color layer, we only want to remain with the color. So select the color layer and simply come to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur. So this Gaussian blur filter is going to remove textures from the image by simply blurring them away. So click on an area on the skin that you feel has more skin details or skin textures than the rest of the skin. So about this area has more textures than the rest of the skin, and left click on the radius slider and start taking it up. So you left click and hold down and you drag up as you are releasing this button to see the effect in real time. So for this case, I'll scroll to around 5. That is when the details on the skin are just starting to disappear from the skin of the subject. So just click OK and come to the texture layer and now activate it and simply come to image, apply image. So when it comes to apply image, it is going to bring up this apply image dialog box right here in Photoshop. So the source is basically the name of the photo that you're trying to edit. Then under layer, select the color layer. The channel always has to be RGB. And after doing this, come to where you see blending. So in case you have 16 right here, it means your image is going to be a 16-bit image. And in case you have 8 right here, it means your image or your photo is going to be an 8-bit depth kind of photo. So these are settings accordingly. So in case you have 16 like I have right here, for the blending, select add. The scale has to be 2 and offset 0. Opacity at 100%. Preserve transparency and mask are not checked. And simply turn on the invert option. And you'll see, if at all I'm to zoom in, you can see the textures on this gray like kind of layer. So in case you have 8 right here, these are settings that you have to use. After selecting color and RGB, under blending, select subtract. Make sure invert is not turned on, and the scale has to be 2 and offset 128. Scale is 2, offset 128, and you'll see the details on this gray layer. So mine is a 16-bit image, so I'll basically revert my settings to 16-bit settings. I'll click OK, and after that, come to where you see the blending mode right here. So blend mode, change the blend mode from normal to linear light. Then select both layers and press Ctrl G, or you can use Command G on the keyboard to group these two layers. So you can see that you have separated the same image into the colors and the textures. So after separating the image or the photo into colors and textures, it is time to work on smoothing the skin using frequency separation. So select the color layer and turn off the texture or high frequency layer. The reason as to why I prefer to turn off the texture or high frequency layer is because I want to work on the colors on the skin and blend the colors in the skin tones without having any interference regarding the textures or the details in the image. That is why I have turned it off. And after selecting the color layer and turning off the texture layer, come to the brushes, right click and get the mixer brush tool. So we have selected the mixer brush tool, and its work is to blend the transitions between the skin tones as well as smoothing the skin tones. So select the mixer brush tool, and for the settings, make sure clean brush is selected. And this second option that says clean brush after each stroke is selected with a weight of 9%, load of 75%, mix at 90%, and flow of 100%. And also make sure sample orders is not turned on or is not checked. So after setting the mixer brush tool, it is time to apply the brush. So how do we apply the mixer brush tool, or how do we paint on the skin to blend the tones? By the way, to increase or reduce on the size of the mixer brush tool, you can use the open and close box or square bracket keys on the keyboard to reduce or increase on the size of the brush tool. So you can reduce or increase on the size. And by the way, in case the mixer brush tool is showing a plus icon, make sure you deactivate the caps lock key on your keyboard. So after this, it is time to apply the mixer brush tool. And by the way, make sure that the size is small enough to blend on a given color in an area. So mix the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. How do we mix? You left click and hold down. So you click on your mouse rather on the left click button and start dragging to paint on a given area. And in case you're using a graphics tablet, it is as simple as drawing over the area that you want to paint using the stylus or the graphics pen. So I'll mix the highlights alone, midtones alone, and the shadows alone. And as you're doing this, make sure you don't zoom all the way in, because when you do this, you can't see the uneven skin tone transitions. When you zoom all the way in, you can't see uneven skin tone transitions. So retouch at a distance, and you have to, after blending a given area, you release the left click button and left click once again to blend on a new color or new skin tones in a brand new area. So you have to follow also the way light is falling on the subject's skin or subject's face. So mix this highlight alone and follow that direction. You can see the cheekbone or the cheek is moving in this kind of diagonal direction. So I have to also follow that kind of direction. So you can see how easy it is. So blend like that. So when it comes to the nose area, this is what we are going to do. So reduce on the size of the brush, that it has to be small enough, and blend this shadow area of the nose just like that. Just like that. Blend it quickly and easily, and blend just below her eyes just like that. So blend the highlight alone, and where these colors are transitioning from one color to another, just use a very small brush and you blend the transitions in that given area. So I'll be doing this for the rest of the areas that have skin, and you can see as you're doing all this, the skin is now looking nice and smooth, because we are blending skin tones of our model in this case. But when you come back and return on the texture layer, you can see that the textures are still left intact within the image, and we are now only working on the colors on the skin. So I'll be doing this for the rest of the model's skin. So you have to follow a specific direction. So don't jump from one area to another. So make sure that you are done with the face, then you go to the other parts of the body, like the neck. So I'll blend the transitions on the neck area just like that. And by just doing this, you can see the skin is now looking nice and smooth. So hold down the space bar key and left click to move up, and you can now continue working. So you can see the hand or the arm is moving in this up and down direction. So I will also follow this kind of up and down direction to keep and maintain the original shape of the model's hand or arm. Don't move in the opposite direction, because you are going to distort the shape of, or the original shape of, the model's body, which you don't want to do. So I'll blend just like that, reduce on the size, and I'll blend right on the fingers. So for the knuckles and these dark areas, just get a very tiny brush and you slightly brush over those particular areas to blend them so that they can look a little bit better, and remove those dark areas from the fingers of the model or the subject or your client, in case you are trying to edit client photos. So for this line close to the armpit, I have blended in the opposite direction to eliminate them, because sometimes they don't look very cool and appealing. So I'll blend just like that. So after blending, let me show you the before and after for just the smoothening process of the skin. This is the image before, after, before, after. The skin is now looking smooth, but if you are to analyze, we still have the details left intact within the skin tone. You can see the skin texture is still left intact within the image. So after doing this, it's time to remove the pimples or skin imperfections like the blemishes. And by the way, you can even as well blend with the texture layer turned on, in case you really trust your eyes or your sight. So come to the texture layer and now activate it, and come and get the clone stamp tool, or you can press S on the keyboard. S is going to be the shortcut for the clone stamp tool. And for the settings of the clone stamp tool, make sure the hardness is set to 0, and make sure the mode is set to normal, opacity and the flat 100%, align is checked, and the sample is set to current layer. The reason for selecting the sample to current layer is because we want to remove the pimples or blemishes that are part of the currently selected layer in this case. So to remove pimples, make sure you zoom all the way in order to see or identify those pimples quite well. So to remove a pimple, make sure that you reduce on the size of the clone stamp tool to be slightly bigger than the pimple or the blemish. So how the clone stamp tool is going to be working, you copy clean skin and stamp it over the pimple to replace or cover the pimple. So to sample clean skin, come to where the pimple is located and hold down the option key on the keyboard for Mac. Then for Windows or PC, it is the alternate. So hold down the Alt key on the keyboard and left click, option, left click on a clean area near the pimple, and left click once again to replace the pimple with clean skin after releasing the alternate button. So Alt, left click, release the Alt button, and left click once again over the pimple to replace the pimple with a clean skin. So I'll be doing this to the rest of her pimples or the blemishes. So I'll remove all these skin imperfections. So take your time as you're trying to clear up or remove these skin imperfections, pimples, blemishes, because at the end of the day, you don't want to leave out pimples or skin imperfections on the model skin. And remember, the purpose of skin retouching is to have a slightly perfect skin that is a little bit more natural. We don't want to leave any imperfections on our model's or client's face or skin. Command minus. After getting done with the face, you can even come and zoom in all the way and try to remove all these imperfections, like those dark spots on those areas. So you can see, so for example, to remove this line, you can simply sample close to it, option, and left click on a cleaner area, and you simply drag over that line, and that line is going to be removed instantly. So command minus. So right now we are done with the skin retouching process. You can see this is the before after. The image now looks better, but it looks natural and realistic. So after retouching the image, we are going to create a stamp visible layer. A stamp visible layer basically is a merged copy or merged layer for everything that we have below here. How are we going to create a stamp visible layer? We are going to press Shift Option Command E on the keyboard for Mac. Then for Windows is Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer or a merged layer. So after creating this layer, we are first of all going to come to Select and come to Subject, so that Photoshop can automatically help us select the subject in this case. So once the subject layer has been selected, it is going to be time to work on the skin tones so that we can create even skin tone transitions for our model. So we're just going to come to the new layer icon and create a new empty layer and change the blend mode for the empty layer from normal and change it to color, because right now we only want to deal with the colors in the skin tones. So we are simply going to come to the brushes, right click and get the brush tool, and for the settings we are simply going to come and make sure soft round brush is selected and the hardness set to 0, the mode is set to normal, opacity and the flat 100%, and we just want to simply sample or get an area on the skin that we want the rest of the skin of the model to look like. So for this, simply zoom in by using Command plus, or you can use Control plus on the keyboard, and to sample a color on the skin, hold down the option button or the option key on the keyboard, and you left click option or alternate option and left click to sample a color on the skin. So I'm just going to sample from another area, option, and sample from an area. So for this, I feel like I'll sample from this area and paint. So I'm just going to be using that color that I've just sampled. So it is always better you choose a slightly warm color for this step, because sometimes it may not yield the best kinds of results. So I'll paint just like this. Don't mind in case the image is looking a little bit too reddish or over orange. So I'll be showing I can easily color correct those areas. So I'll do this for the rest of the model's skin, just like this, and paint and paint and paint, just like that. I hope you can see what we are having right now. The skin is now looking nice and getting to have a uniform kind of skin color or skin tone for the model. So I'll paint like this. So to paint, we are basically left clicking and holding down and painting on the skin of the model. And the reason as to why we selected the subject layer or the edges of the subject is because during the painting process we don't want color to spill to the background or areas that we do not want color grade in the first place. That is why we have selected the subject layer in this case. So I'm just going to paint like that. So in case you paint out of the selection or you paint unwanted areas, I'll show you how you can easily correct or rectify those simple mistakes. So stick around and we color grade these model skin tones. So for this step, basically we just want to achieve a uniform skin color or skin tone. But as you're doing all this, keep away from the eyebrows, keep away from the original makeup, because you don't want to change or tamper with the work of the makeup artist. So I'll keep away from the hair and some areas that I don't want to paint, like the outfit. So I'll paint on all the areas that I feel I should paint. So like I said, in case you make an error or in case you make a mistake, it is as simple as getting the eraser tool. And you know, the eraser tool, its work is to rub or erase away the effect from unwanted areas. So I'll just come and erase it from this area of the model's outfit and some other unwanted areas. I'll press Command minus to zoom out. So after working on the skin, it is time to press Ctrl D, or you can press Command D on the keyboard to deactivate the active selection. So I'll come the opacity, since this looks overdone, I'll come the opacity and simply take down the opacity slider and reduce on the opacity to around 70. Looks okay. And in case the skin is still looking over saturated or too orange, this is what you have to do. Come to adjustments and simply come to hue and saturation, come to master and select the reds, and you can take down the lightness of the reds just like that. It is going to reduce on the amount of the oversaturated skin tones. And in case the skin is looking a little bit reddish, you can come to the hues of the reds and play around with the hue slider to remove the reds from the skin. So you can see the skin is now getting to look more on the natural side. So we shall come and create another black and white adjustment layer to add more contrast to the skin, and change the blend mode from normal to multiply, and come and reduce on the overall opacity. So for this, I'll go with around an opacity of around 16. And the purpose of this is to add more contrast to the model's skin tone. So by just doing this, you can see what we have been able to achieve simply and easily. So after doing this, let's work on the colors, especially the hair has this kind of cyan feel in the black. So we are simply going to come and create a selective color adjustment layer. Come and target the blacks and come to where you see the cyans. So to remove this kind of reddish feel or cyan feel to the hair, come and select the blacks and come to where you see the cyans and take it towards the right hand side. And this is going to make the hair a little bit dark and look a little bit better, and remove that kind of reddish feel from the hair and some areas of the background. So in case you want to add a little bit of glow or shine to the skin, we are going to come and create a curves adjustment layer. And after coming to curves and come to this right hand pointer, drag it towards the left hand side until when you feel like the skin highlights a little bit over blown out, and stop at that point. Right click on this curves adjustment layer and come to blending options, and it's going to open up the layer style dialog box. So under this, come and measure the blend if it's set to gray, and come to where you see underlying layer. So for the underlying layer, click on these pointers, left click and hold down, and you drag them towards the right hand side, and stop at the point whereby the effect is only affecting the highlights of the skin. So for the effect to blend well or better into the skin, hold down the option key on the keyboard or hold down the alternate key on the keyboard, and you split this towards the right hand side until when the effect is going to blend well or more or better into the skin. Click OK. Change the blend mode from normal, and change it all the way down to linear dodge to enhance the glow or skin shine. But come to the white layer mask and press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert or hide the effect from affecting the overall image. Then come to the brushes, right click and get the brush tool, and make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches. In case you have any other color apart from black and white, you can simply reset by left clicking on the tiny color swatches. So make sure white is the foreground color. Remember, in Photoshop, white is going to reveal and black is going to hide. That is why the effect has been hidden behind this black mask. So in order to reveal it, we are simply going to paint using the white brush. So for this, white is the foreground color, and I'm just going to start painting on the areas that I feel should or must have had this nice and beautiful glow for the model's skin, just like that. I know this looks a little bit too much or overdone, but I'll show you how you can easily make it look a little bit more natural. So I've painted on the highlights, and now the model has this kind of skin glow or skin shine. So I'll come to the opacity and reduce on the opacity so that the effect can fade in and look a little bit natural enough. So I'll just take this a little bit lower at around 30 before after. I feel like that is too much still, so I'll take it around 17 or around 21 before after. So right now we are done color grading the models image. So after color grading, let's do a little bit of eye whitening. So in order to whiten the eyes of the subject, we are simply going to come to adjustments and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Then we are going to come to master and make sure master is selected, and come to the saturation and take out the saturation from the image to around -79. With the white layer mask selected, press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert or hide the effect, and get the brush tool, white as the foreground color or as the top color. You have the liberty to zoom in this time around. So just want to do teeth whitening for the model's eyes or teeth. So reduce on the size and simply paint on what you feel or is meant to be the white area of the eyes, just like that. And by just doing this, it's going to desaturate the white area of the eye and remove all those random colors that were existing within the model's eyes. So Command minus or Control minus to zoom out. So you can see how easy it is to edit a photo when it comes to Photoshop. And in case you want to save this very image, it is as simple as, let me show you the before and after before we save the image. This is the image initially before, after. So in case you want to save this beautiful photo, simply go to File, Export, and go to Export As. And it's going to open up the Export As dialog box right here in Photoshop. And make sure the format is set to JPEG, quality set to the maximum, which is 7 for this case. The resample has to be set to bicubic sharper, and because we want a very sharp image during the saving process. And after doing this, scroll down to color space. Make sure the color space is set to convert to sRGB, and embed color profile have been checked, and click on export and choose a location where you want to save the image and click on save. So this is how you can easily edit a photo in Photoshop from the start to the very end. And if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like the video and don't forget to subscribe if at all you have been watching and you are not yet subscribed to this channel. Ronnix from ronnixphotography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more videos on this channel. Don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.